internet, apparently.
Gotta make this garden grow. All it takes is a rake and a hoe. Unless these seeds are sown, someone warm them from below till the rain comes tumbling down. Plant your rose, train it long, temper them with prayer and song. Mother Earth will make you strong if you give her love and care. Old crow watching hungrily from his perch in yonder tree. In my garden I'm as free as that feathered leaf of May. Inch by inch and row by row, gonna make this garden. All it takes is a rake and a hoe and a piece of fertile ground. Inch by inch and row by row, someone bless these seeds I sow. Someone warm them from below till the rain comes tumbling down. Till the rain comes tumbling down.
Good morning. Welcome to the Zoom service of UUCC, the Unitarian Universalist Church of Canandaigua. UUCC is a congregation that fosters personal and spiritual growth through religious exploration in search of the truth while celebrating diversity and affirming the worth and dignity of every person. We are glad that you're joining us today. I am Michelle Chapla, your worship associate for today. And today we will be joined by Reverend Tina Simpson, Minister Emerita from First Unitarian Church in Rochester, through pre-recorded messages. Our summer worship schedule will be virtual on Zoom only, except for the second Sundays, July 10th and August 14th, when we plan to have in-person and Zoom options, as well as a potluck picnic at church following the service. Yay, getting back to that. Our minister, Reverend Eileen Casey Campbell, is currently at General Assembly, but sent a message she'd like to share about the overturning of Roe versus Wade.
Hi, Canandaigua. I'm here in Portland, Oregon, at the General Assembly of the UUA, and I am so grateful to be here with UU clergy and leaders and delegates from congregations. And also, this morning, I was wishing that I could be with you. Wishing I could be with you on Sunday morning, which it is for you now, but it's Friday morning as I record this. I know that so many of you are angry and scared and lost over the enormous loss of freedom in the overturn of Roe v. Wade this week. And I know we knew it was coming, and still, we're mad, we're terrified. I know that there are many of you in the pews this morning, on your Zoom screens this morning, who are re-traumatized over your own pre-Roe abortions, who feel defeated about the years of work you put in for Roe to become reality, and the expectation you had that that work was your gift to future generations. I know that there are so many of you, and I'm with you, who sit with all of that and with the worry about what this precedent unravels in the rest of our human rights, for gender equality, for marriage equality, for trans rights, about what this says about how our society values bodies and whose bodies matter. And we're gonna talk more about this. We're going to work more on this. But this morning, I just wanted to tell you that your rage and your terror are okay. They're okay to bring to church with you. And that I want you to hear from my voice that your bodies, however they're made, however they're beautifully made, matter. Your bodies are sacred, holy, divine, and they're yours. And whatever 5 people in Washington say about that does not undo the truth that your bodies, our bodies, every body is sacred, holy, divine, and yours. I love you all, and I will be with you soon. And I will be holding you in my heart until then. Hi, Canandaigua.
Thank you, Eileen. Beautifully presented and said. And with that on our hearts, please join us today as you're able at Atwater Park on Main Street. It's on North Main Street near the YMCA, just south of it, at 2 p.m. today for a protest rally. At this moment right now, my husband Vince is out buying materials to make signs for us. And another announcement related to that is we will also be joining a group for Bands Off Our Bodies on Wednesday, July 13th at 5 p.m. also at Atwater Place Park, where we will be today at 2. Another announcement, UUCC will be marching in the Rochester Pride Parade on Saturday, July 16th. We'll gather in Rochester at 12:30. Watch for the weekly emails for information on carpool opportunities. Now we enter a space of worship. Bells. I have a little chalice that I had made. We gather this hour as people of faith with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of quest for truth and meaning in celebration of the life we share together.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be with you today. I'm sorry I can't be there in person, but thanks to the miracles of Zoom, I'll just pretend that we are together. I thought a lot about our opening words today because it seems like every week brings something tragic. And not knowing what will be happening in the next few weeks, I'm recording this on the 14th. I am hopeful and I pray that we have some quiet time in our country. But I thought that this reading might help us all live together in this moment as we open our service today. Our reading is from an author, an Indian author, Arundhati Roy, and this piece is from her book, The Cost of Living. To love, to be loved, to never forget our own insignificance, to never get used to the unspeakable violence and the vulgar disparity of life around you, to seek joy in the saddest places, to produce beauty, to pursue beauty, to never simplify what is complicated, and to never complicate what is simple, to respect strength, never power, and above all, to watch, try to understand, to never look away, and never, never to forget. Another world is not only possible, she is on her way. On a quiet day, I can hear her breathing. Welcome to our celebration of life. It is so good to be with you this morning.
Hello. Joys and sorrows. This is our joys and sorrows portion. We are a community that holds one another in our celebrations and in our pain. Please share your joys and sorrows in the chat box in Zoom. Okay, so know that whatever your heart is holding today, we are with you. And there has been joy, the joy of improved health, sorrow, deep sorrow for our daughters, and anger and sadness. Sadness to learn that close friends hold differing points of view, and it's sometimes inconceivable. I don't know if other groups will be joining us today. There have been postings made on social media. I don't participate in most social media, so I don't have privy to that, but I had made some requests and was told that yes, there had been, the information was out there, but I am not personally aware of anyone else coming. And some happiness over the end of the school year for some kids. Personally, I was gardening yesterday, and as I said, I'm making signs today. And I thought of one that is very simple, and in my mind, it makes perfect sense. It's love equals respect equals trust. Trust women. So that is one sign that I will be with today. So for the joys and sorrows shared here and those held deeply in your heart, know that we are with you. We hold these and all the big feelings in our hearts. Now is the time in our service to join together in the spiritual practice of generosity. Our gifts support our church in its work, and that work is summarized in our covenant. The covenant for UUCC says, in service of the values that unite us, we will recognize the inherent value of each person, foster a community of compassion and caring for all, value our diverse opinions, and engage respectively in all interactions. Not always easy to achieve. If you would like to give to this morning's offering, you can give online at canandaiguauu.org/connect/donate, or physically by mailing a check to the church. In either case, note if you would like your gift to go toward the Sunday offering or your pledge. And that information is now in the chat. We share 25% of our monthly Sunday offerings with our service partner, which was chosen for this blooming season, Finger Lakes Land Trust, an organization that protects forest, farmlands, gorges, and shorelines in the Finger Lakes region of New York by creating public nature preserves. And this partner was chosen by our Social Justice Environmental Committee, which is also known as Team 6. Thank you.
Let us settle now into the spirit of meditation and prayer. Sit back and rest. Put your feet on the floor and feel the solid earth holding you securely in place. And rest in the rhythm of love and blessings. It's summer. Breathe deep and feel the sacredness of this time and this place. Breathe deep and feel the bond of this beloved community. Solstice has passed, And for a few days, the sun hung suspended in the sky, motionless, as if reluctant to shift toward autumn. And in this still prayer of summer, the breezes will brush your skin with the fragrance of blossoms. The bird song and fireflies will nudge your soul, and the warm rain will wash away the dust from your heart. Breathe deep all that is your life. Breathe deep all that is this earth. The sun fills every pore, fires our hearts, calls us to play, and makes us lazy. Lazy and gentle with ourselves and others. Do you hear the call of summer? The road is open. The sky is big. It's calling you. Step off the path, feel the grass between your toes. Allow yourself to wander. Slow down. Stop. Touch this summer day. Let the sun guide you. So much is waiting to be discovered on this journey, on your journey. In the field, in the river, in your heart, in the eyes of your friend, in the hands of your child. Go, wander. Let the earth guide you to your true self. Let us be silent together. May the silence we share serve to hold us and heal us all. Amen.
Our meditation hymn.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Oh.
This past week, we celebrated the summer solstice, a time when the earth pauses and begs us to notice the beauty all around us. It's a time when, after the hard work of spring, the farmer, the gardener, well, we can rest for a few days to notice the beginning fruits of our efforts. It's a time when the earth begins to give us her bounty. It's an important moment for me because I'm a gardener and I love dirt. I love the feel of it. I love the smell of it. I love when it's dry and dusty and when it's warm and moist from the summer rain. I even love when it's cold and soggy in the early spring. I go through dirt withdrawal in February when the smell of snow gets old and I crave that fragrance of spring mud. When the pandemic lockdown began in March of 2020 and everything was uncertain and frightening, my husband and I were concerned that we wouldn't be able to get flowers to scatter about our gardens or herbs or tomatoes. And so for the first time ever, we got seeds and pods filled with dirt to start on our kitchen table. It was our pandemic process. It was also our pandemic promise that no matter what happened, there would be tomatoes and herbs and vegetables and flowers. That smell of dirt as I watered the pods each morning brought me back to who I was and how I was connected to this world and to my God. Unable to see family and friends, excuse me, we had each other and we had dirt and hope and we had the promise of summer. I started gardening 32 years ago after my mom died. I was in my early 30s raising kids and trying to find my way in life after she died much sooner than I'd hoped. You see, she was a gardener too. When I was little, she had a rock garden on a scrappy patch of dirt in our backyard in the city of Rochester. She spent hours there. She created beauty in this unexpected place. Flowers bloomed all summer, and birds came to drink from her spotless bird bath. It seems to me that she retreated there when life got challenging for her. My mom suffered from a long illness, and as she grew older, she lost her ability to garden outside. But when she died, her house was filled with potted plants. You see, she had this habit of collecting any plant that seemed to need her tender attention from any doctor's office she entered. She'd eye the plant as we walked in and convince the office staff to let her take it home. She'd nurse it back to health with a bit of TLC, and they'd join the jungle in our home. As my mom's life faded, I watched her focus shift to the light of her plants. She knew she wouldn't live long, but her plants could. And looking back now, I can see how her approach to gardening gave me strength to face my limitations and awakened hope, because she had hope for a future she would not see. When she died in December of 1990, her last words to me were, "Tina, water the plants." They really were. So I took it to heart. I started a garden at my own home the next spring. And when I left that house, after 20 years of gardening, I had a shade garden, a sun garden, and perennials that bloomed from February through November. Now, when I started, I was not a humble gardener. I planted with ambition. I had great plans. I was convinced I could get my garden to bloom pink and white and purple in the spring, and then magically shift to red, yellow, and orange in the heat and the height of summer. And inevitably, in my cloud of pink and purple blossoms, an eager red flower would sprout before its time. Wild daisies invaded every year. My carefully tended patterns disappeared, and so I pulled up plants. I moved them around. I dug up the wild daisies, and I snipped the errant blooms. And for several years, I seemed to do battle with my garden rather than cultivate it. And then In the course of one single night, in the middle of June, little green worms devoured my gracefully waving prize columbines. Friends, that's when I realized that my garden was cultivating me. I think perhaps nature was indeed conspiring to awaken in me a better person. Humility in the face of nature was my first lesson. That's when gardening ceased to be a battle or a chore and became my spiritual practice. Now, there's a bumpy concept, isn't it? Spiritual practice. It's not something common in our Unitarian Universalist tradition. Considering it, we can easily get caught up in unraveling the terms, trying to define them and understand their meaning in our life. And yet, if we get caught there, I'm afraid we miss an opportunity to delve deeply into the corners of our own soul, the corners of our own garden. We miss the opportunity to awaken our spirit and find hope when there is darkness. And lately, there's been way too much darkness. I think many of us back away from spiritual practice because we have questions that are difficult to answer and preconceived notions about what it is. What do you mean spiritual? How do we know if what we're doing is actually a spiritual practice? How do we understand and engage in a tradition such as prayer or meditation? Can this really be for us? Is this one more thing we need to add to our busy life? What value could this possibly bring us? I understand. It's tough to embrace a concept when so many questions exist for us, and even the words seem difficult to define. And yet, every faith tradition offers us some method to pause the frenetic pace of life and connect to the holy. And who doesn't agree that it would be helpful and desirable to do that, no matter how each of us defines holy? Spiritual practice can offer us renewal and replenishment of the resources of our heart. And there is a host of techniques for quieting the mind and listening to that still, small voice inside each of us. These past 2 years of pandemic life have left us depleted and exhausted by the complexity of day-to-day living. And many of us have become short-tempered, angry, and irascible. Spiritual practice gives us a chance to refill our reservoirs of courage and patience and generosity and humility. Because when our inner landscape is nourished, when the inner garden is lush, our capacity to hope, our capacity to love, and our capacity to serve others increases exponentially. When we are able to give from a wellspring inside of us, we can reach out to others, experience their need as our own, and we can care for the world. So how do we step forward? How do we notice the opportunities to quiet the noise and listen? Perhaps the easiest way to cultivate a spiritual practice is to pay attention to what is calling you. A spiritual practice is an activity we do with intention and yearning to know our deepest self. The time we set aside for our practice is separate from ordinary time. It opens our hearts to the gifts of the world. We rest in the presence of nature. We accept the gifts of our favorite poet. We sit quietly and breathe. We listen to Beethoven or Gregorian chants. We walk our dog or ride a horse into the wind. By expanding the definition of spiritual practice beyond the traditional methods, we can bypass those thorny theological struggles and preconceived notions of what is right. We can create the sacred space we need to tend our inner garden. We can listen first to our heart's desire and then to our heart's message. Spiritual practice is within easy reach. of all of us. And here's the key. It doesn't have to be perfect. Our spiritual practice is not a race or a competition or neatly planned. There is no need to do battle with our spiritual practice. The word practice, after all, implies consistency, not perfection. It's not an activity with a clear goal, but a commitment to the journey, a commitment to show up each day, ready to accept what is given in the moments we choose to be with ourselves, to be with our God. It is a pursuit of oneness, not perfection. It leads to an opening of life's gifts and ultimately to service to the world. When I prepare to work in my garden, when I begin my spiritual practice, I have a ritual. I breathe deeply. When I walk outside, I silently express gratitude for the gifts of the earth. I put on my gardening gloves slowly with intention, and then I move into a holy place. First, I walk about checking my plants and flowers. I suspect on some level we even chat. And then I tend to it, weeding, digging, deadheading. I get dirty, I get sweaty, and above all, I'm alone. I'm alone and yet deeply connected to the earth and to every being on it. I feel the connection with my fingers in the dirt. Thoughts gently move in and out of my mind, no thought ever staying very long. I do not force a garden. I listen to it. I notice what grows easily, what needs careful tending, what needs more sunlight, and what would benefit from being moved to the front, what needs clearing and thinning, and what needs to be dug up by the roots and thrown away. These are such metaphors for my life, for my inner landscape. And while I don't apply all those questions to myself directly, some internal voice does. It's sort of in the background as I dig in the dirt. An amazing aspect of spiritual practice is often not the insight one gets in the moment, but the way spirit or God or your own deep knowing shows up in your ordinary life. And right there, next to the mundane, you begin to experience divinity. And yet even the most devoted among us lets our spiritual practice grow dusty and unused. We walk away, we put it off to a more convenient time. Perhaps we forget its restorative powers, or we make the excuse that our life is just too busy. Or maybe, just maybe, we fear the darker sides of this discipline, and we choose to do battle with our practice rather than knowing our own soul. You see, by committing to a spiritual practice, we must be willing to get our hands dirty. We must be willing and committed to digging deep. It may be easy to confuse spiritual practice with relaxation techniques or other activities to help us feel better. But an honest spiritual discipline is a commitment to personal integrity. It can be uncomfortable sometimes, challenging and painful. And from this place, radical interior change does occur. We must be willing to answer hard questions. To unearth parts of ourselves that are difficult to face, we must be willing to recognize the weeds and the invasive species that rob us of our energy, our heart, and our true self. A friend of mine once recounted a dream. In her dream, she told me she woke up and couldn't find herself. She was frantic at this sense of disconnection. She raced about her house, saying to herself, "Where am I?" And in her dream, she heard her own voice say, "Look in the garden." And sure enough, when she looked, she found herself gently sleeping, curled among the flowers, the moon shining on her restful face. She told me after that, the call of her garden became strong and deep for her. She knew it was her healing place. She could spend 30 minutes snipping spent flowers, pulling errant weeds, listening to the buzz of bees, and in those moments, release her cares and hand her well-being over to nature. She noticed her breathing would slow and her body relax, and even as she worked, a sense of rhythm took over her body and her movements became a prayer. So I encourage you today to find your spiritual practice. Make this the year you commit to your inner journey. Awaken the hope that has lain dormant during these hard times. Recognize the need and value to replenish your well and know the depths of your own soul. Learn to meditate, walk in nature, dance in the moonlight, and please be willing to get your hands dirty and do your homework. Because it's only when we pull up the toughest roots and prune the thickest bush that new growth will awaken in our lives. Friends, may you find hope in the blossoms of summer. May you fill your well with love. May it be so, and amen.
Replenish your well. And now for our closing hymn, Morning Hangs a Signal. And now is the time to extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Thank you for joining us this morning. We invite you to stay for coffee hour. You will see an invitation to join a breakout room and be able to unmute your microphones when the live stream ends.